G'day, my name's Paul from Deep Cycle Systems, and in today's video we're going to be looking at connecting our lithium batteries directly to four-wheel drive alternators. So we're an Aussie-based tech company and we spent a lot of time and money developing this battery management system, which allows us to connect our batteries directly to vehicle alternators. We also developed this cell management system which provides further reliability under high temperature applications, such as when our batteries are installed inside engine bays. So here we have our most popular batteries, the 12 volt 100 amp hour marine batteries. We're going to connect these two batteries now in parallel, and we're going to hook them up to a stock standard Land Cruiser 200 series alternator, and we're going to see what happens. So here we have our alternator testing machine, and you can see we have a Fluke infrared thermometer and also a Fluke clamp meter. So we're clamp metering the output from the alternator going to the DCS batteries, and we're also measuring the case temperatures of the alternator itself. So the Fluke infrared camera now is showing a case temperature on this particular alternator at 35 degrees, and we're going to commence the test. Straight after the alternator is spun up by the machine, we're straight to 108 amps, as you can see on the clamp meter. And both of the DCS batteries are sitting at 50% stated charge. And now the alternator is ramping up to its maximum power output. And we can see there it's maintaining a steady 107 amps. And the external case temperature of the alternator itself is climbing there very slowly, still sitting at 35 degrees and slowly climbing as it produces its maximum power. Now, what's important to know about stock standard four-wheel drive alternators is that, or even all modern four-wheel drive alternators, is that they are designed to provide 80% of their rated power at idle. So for example, the 200 series Land Cruiser alternator that's rated at 150 amps can safely deliver that 100 amp range, even at idle, without hurting the windings or hurting the rotor or damaging or affecting the alternator's longevity by any means. Modern alternators are also referred to as smart alternators, which means they have temperature compensation. So it's virtually impossible to kill or destroy or damage a standard smart alternator anyway, because as it heats up, the ECU will actually depower the alternator, and there's virtually no way of destroying such alternators. Because lithium iron phosphate and especially our DCS batteries have such a high round trip efficiency, you're actually further improving the service life of alternators, because the batteries are topped up again very quickly, well before the alternator has a chance to peak and hit maximum operating temperatures. Starter motors also benefit from an improved service life because there is significantly less voltage drop under cranking, which means that there is significantly less current flow around the windings of the rotor. With the DCS hybrid engine starting and deep cycle batteries, we can extract the full potential of our battery management system and lithium as a cell chemistry by connecting them directly to stock standard four-wheel drive alternators, as we're showing in this test. So now, after 30 minutes of running this alternator close to maximum RPM, we can see that it's only approaching 39 degrees, still hasn't even reached 40 degrees on the case temperature. And the batteries are happily charging at 108 amps. Our batteries, the two 12 volt 100 amp hour batteries, can comfortably charge up to 200 amps without affecting any of the service life of the cells. With a standard 150 amp alternator, we can see here that we're peaking at around 108 amps. So we're well within the thresholds of charging these batteries, and they're not being stressed by any means. Each battery is currently connected to a dedicated Bluetooth, via our Bluetooth app. Each battery is now shown, and you can see the temperature, the internal temperature of each battery. You can see the battery management system internally inside the batteries is only running around 40 degrees. So everything's running nice and cool there. And very important to mention that the DCS batteries will continue to operate all the way up to 110 degrees before we'll shut down the BMS. There's been nobody anywhere in the country that has been able to get the batteries hot enough in an engine bay, in any vehicle, anywhere, to make them shut down from temperature. And we can see the alternator after 30 minutes is still only sitting there at 43, 44 degrees. So still running cool. Batteries are running cool, alternators running cool. Nothing in this setup is being stressed whatsoever. Important to note that standard four-wheel drive alternators can handle up to 185 degrees on the rotors before you are stressing alternators, and we are nowhere near that temperature after 30 minutes of fast charging. So at this point in the test, we've been running at pretty high RPMs, and you can see we've maintained over 105 amps. Now we've just reduced the RPM speed to further stress the batteries, and let's see and observe and see if the temperature does actually increase. So now we're down to 95 amps of charging power, simulating an idle speed after running at flat chat for 30 minutes. So now after 1 hour of running the alternator, we have reduced to idle speeds to further stress the alternator by reducing the internal airflow. And we can see we're getting a slight climb in the ambient case temperature in the alternator up to about 45 degrees now. And it's still producing over 90 amps, about 92, 93 amps. The batteries are pretty close to being fully charged. And the battery management system temperature and the alternator temperature, everything is still running fine. So you've just seen the results of our batteries connected directly to the stock standard Land Cruiser alternator. Now we're going to do the same test, but this time we're going to connect to the Toyota Hilux alternator. Now we've installed a Toyota Hilux alternator. These alternators are typically rated around 90 to 100 amps. And as soon as we get into the RPMs here, we can see the alternator running at 74 amps. So again, around about 80% of its power output, and we've got a case temperature of around 41 degrees. Again, the batteries have been discharged for this test down to 50% state of charge, and we can see the alternators maxing out at about 73 amps. After 30 minutes of running at maximum power output on the Hilux alternator, we can see a peak case temperature on these alternators at around about 50 degrees. So still far away from any type of stress. These alternators will handle, up to 120, 130 degrees without any issues on longevity whatsoever. And we can see the battery management system temperature on these batteries still sitting at a very low 35 to 40 degree range. You've just seen the results of the Toyota Hilux alternator. Now we're going to set up another test and show you what happens with an aftermarket 250 amp alternator. So the third test we've done is connecting a aftermarket 250 amp alternator. Now we're taking this alternator straight to maximum RPM to get absolute maximum power output we can. You can see on the clamp meter now we're running at 256 amps. The DCS batteries are rated to 100 amps each. So the maximum theoretical charging power is limited to 200 amps. In this test, we are deliberately stressing the batteries and stressing the alternator to show what happens with the ambient temperatures. You can see we're still producing 250 amps of charging power. and the batteries at 50% stated charge are happy to take this power without any issues, and still the battery management systems are within normal temperatures. The alternator, however, is increasing its case temperature very rapidly. You can see we're climbing into the 80-degree temperature range after only several minutes. You can see 15 minutes into the test that the current is now dropping off at 235 amps, and the alternator is pushing into the 90 degrees, 93 degrees, approaching 100 degrees case temperatures. After about 10-15 minutes into the test, we now reduce the alternator speed down to an idle speed to put further stress on the alternator. We have now reduced the alternator RPMs down to an idle speed, and we can see the current output now from the alternator is around 200 amps. The 200 amp output is well within the charging current range of our batteries. So the batteries now are charging within their normal threshold. We can see the alternator temperature now increasing very rapidly, and we're pushing into the 120 degree case temperatures very fast. We can see we're just at around 170, 190, 180 amps, and the alternator case temperature is peaking at around 125 degrees. Although this temperature is now stabilized and doesn't seem to be climbing any further. The manufacturer of this particular alternator tells us that this alternator is stable up to 160 and 170 degrees. So at 125 degrees, technically we're still not stressing this alternator, and producing close to 200 amps at idle, which the DCS batteries are happy to accept. So you've just seen how reliable stock standard 4-wheel drive alternators really are, and how safe it is to connect them directly to DCS lithium batteries. Thanks for watching the video, and see you guys out in the tracks with your DCS dual battery systems.